The gimlet. The gimlet is more than just a gin drink. It's actually something that you use to an old-fashioned way of boring a hole in the wood. And this came to me because I played around with the gate latch and realized that that 3/8 of an inch tapered staple with its even end was really hard for starting wood. So somebody's got a dog out there. I think you need to turn your mic off. So here is the gimlet in action. This is what we're going to do. We're going to try and produce a 3/8 of an inch diameter gimlet, and I'm going to be using a piece of 1/4 inch round rod. Now, I use mild steel, and for most woods, including oak, that is actually not too bad. If you wanted it for harder woods or drier woods, you might choose to make it out of some higher grade alloy. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the handle. Why the handle first? That is going to help me a little later when I go to twist this thing. Yeah. So I've laid off about 2 inches, 1.5 inches or so, and I've just bent that over the edge of the anvil and folded it back on itself. And then it's just to eat. I'm going to lay off about the same measurement, and fold it back on itself. And if you look at that bottom right photograph, you can see I've got the end of the bar touching the parent bar. There's no need to take it further than that. What I'm going to do now, and you can see I've got the end of the original bar outside of the anvil. So I'm crowding the end of the original bar as I make this next bend. And here I am, I've made the bend, and what I want to do is I want to have this stock come midway along the handle, and you can play around with this last bend to get that bar in the middle. So this is your chance just to play around, get it in the middle, and then we can move on. The next thing you're going to need is to make the flutes, which is really like a drill bit, to make the flutes of this gimlet. You're going to need a bottom swage of the stock, a bit of, excuse me, 1.25 by 1/2 inch, something like that, and just drive a rod in. That will be fine. But I'm just using, like I say, I've got the bottom swage, and I want you to know that it is relieved on the edges. Can you see the daylight there as it comes out? The bottom third is actually two size, and then I've come right out and I've got a little relief on top, and that is important for me, and we'll discuss that in a minute. So moving on. To assist in the twisting process, you're going to need a little bit of stock to hold in the vise, and then a bit more stock that you're going to hold, that's going to create the cone, which is going to hold the leading thread. Let's have a look, and you can see that at the top here. So I've twisted at this stage, cut off the bit that was flattened and held in the vise, and then made a cone, which goes and starts to become my leading thread. So giving yourself, let's say, 1 inch, 1.25 inches from the end of the bar, hold it in the bottom swage, whatever you're using, and just flatten it for about the width of your hammer. What I want you to see here is that I'm not creating shoulders here. I'm just feathering this out to parent stock, and that's important to me. And I'm doing that on both ends, but certainly on the end nearest the end. We don't want any steps in that. It's just going to come back and hold. So let's have a look at a piece of angle iron. When you twist angle iron twists around its point of strength, and the point of strength really is not in the bar. The point of strength is slightly forward of the corner, and you can see this. It's creating a hollow inside of my twisted angle iron there. The other thing I want you to know about twisting angle iron is that the more you twist it, the more the edges deflect. So if you look at the top left, you can see this is almost a flying W. Everything is even. Those edges have really been deflected. And you can see by the bottom right photograph that I'm only just a little twist away from this bit of bar actually being twisted next to the parent bar. So it doesn't take much for this thing to get out of its own way. And then when I look at some half round bar, you can see that that is going to look very similar to that corner section of the angle line. So our half round bar that we just made is going to act in a manner. Now I've drawn this as a crescent, not as a half round, and that is true. I want us now that we've made our half round, I want to come back in and just hem that edge just slightly, and you can see by the top right photograph there that it is slightly cut, more of a crescent shape. The reason I've done that is because of that angle iron edges deflecting outwards when you twist. Once I've got the flute where I like it, made it half round, I'm then going to come in on the end and just flatten those end pieces, or the end piece, until it becomes just flat on the side, something that I can hold in the vise. But leave yourself 1/2 to 3/8 of an inch of parent stock. So just flatten everything in front of that. And then we're going to twist. And here's the important thing. Most right-handed people tend to twist clockwise. Most left-handed people tend to twist anti-clockwise, counterclockwise. In this case, I want you to avoid your normal tendencies and twist it in the opposite direction. So I'm hoping you can see here that me being right-handed, I have turned this counterclockwise. And the reason I do that is because when I use the gimlet, I will want to turn it clockwise, and this edge is going to be my cutting edge. And you can see if I'd have turned that clockwise to start with, it would be going the other way, and I wouldn't be able to use my normal method of twisting it clockwise later on in use. So I want you to turn it opposite to the way that you want to turn it. Now, the other thing is, how much do you twist? We looked at the angle line and we saw that if you over twist it, the edges are going to get deflected. Now, there's a point where that's actually useful to us because the cutting edge is going to be deflected and is proud of the remaining bar. That's fine. And there's a point where it's not, where it deflects too much, and you've got your small file. If you can't get your file, your round file, into these flutes, then game over. You're going to have to start again because you need the file to clean up the flutes, especially at the end where I've got in this red circle. And so I use a 732 chainsaw file. You can get these at the box stores. They're not terribly expensive. And I find that they will charge through the scale, etc., and do a nice result because they're used for sharpening up your chainsaws, etc. Now, the twist does not have to be even. The twist can open up. This can be flat back here. I don't care. We just need a twist for the first 5/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch. No more than that. I mean, if you get twist along the bar, fine. But if you don't, that's fine also. Okay, so the second bit of the twist does not have to be even. I like to crowd the twist nearest the end, but not to the point that I cannot get my file in. Remembering that the edges deflect if you over twist, and we don't want the edges to deflect too much. So you've twisted it, and me, for the right-handed person, I twisted it counterclockwise. I am now just going to cut it from the bit that you're holding in the vise, leaving me with about 1/2 an inch of stock.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
most of us are seeing the, we're stuck on the angle iron page.
Okay, let me see if I can go back. How is that? Moved on? Yep.
Yeah, it looks like it has. I'm
Okay.
seeing the side view of the half round.
That's it. Very good. And you can see my crescent, so I'll do all this again, I'm sorry. And so I'm going to flatten the last little bit of the bar, leave yourself with 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to twist it counterclockwise for the right-handed person. And again, we're looking at that twist. We're just saying, don't over twist it. Just twist it to the point where you can get your file. And I use a 732 chainsaw file. Just twist it so you can get that in the last few flutes. The rear of the twist that's going further up towards the handle really doesn't have to be much of a twist at all. This does not have to match. The flutes are just removing the chips from the cutting edge. So all they're doing is just pulling chips out. So again, looking at our angle iron, we don't want to over twist because the edges will deflect, as seen by that bottom right. We just want to twist enough, and you're going to have to experiment a little bit with that. So I am cutting off everything that I flattened and is being held in the vise, and I'm leaving myself with enough material to make a cone, which is going to make my lead screw, and then my flute. And you can see I've got this bit of half round back here, and that's straight, and that's going to be just fine. So that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to take what we've made thus far, and I'm just going to put a point on that. Now, you can do this at the belt sander, you can do it with a file, whatever. I have an all singing, all dancing filing vise that I hold vertically in the vise, and that's what I'm going to use. It's going to look something like this. I put a little washer over the end just to protect my vise a little bit. And then I'm just going to do square, octagon, and then eventually round. And I'm trying to get that point somewhere along the middle of the bar. And that may be a little hard to see because it's got the twist in, but give it a good try. And then the next thing is I'm going to come in with my chainsaw file, and I'm just going to chase the flutes. Now, I find it useful. You can certainly lock this thing in the vise and just do a little bit. I find it more useful to close the vise to its, you've got, I don't know, a 3/16 of a gap between the jaws, and then just rest the round on top. And you can then turn the bar as you're filing because you've got the handle on the other end, and it works quite well. Your call. It's up to you what you do. What I want to do now is I want you to focus on cleaning up that leading edge. It's that top edge. That's the bit that's going to be doing the cutting. You can do a little bit on the bottom edge, but that's not as important. Now, at this stage, I'm using that round file. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a half round file. Are you limited to a half round file? No. You could use what I call a 3-square file, which is your triangular file. You could use a ward file. I think those are called knife files these days. All I'm trying to do now, if you can see where my half round was, or the twist and it ended, I'm just chasing along here, and I'm trying to chase at a certain angle. It really doesn't matter what angle, just you can pick that out of the air, just so long as you're moving further towards the end of the cone. And you're going to make a thread, basically. Doesn't have to be much of a thread. In fact, when you look at the rest of the twist, it's fairly coarse in terms of being a thread. And so you can match that, if you will. That's another close-up of the same thing. I'm just chasing this around, trying to maintain the angle. And when you start this, you might find it useful just to set an angle up on your vise. Just draw a line across both jaws with the chalk and make a few of these. So let's say 3/4 of an inch apart to allow you room to sort of move when you're filing this. And that way, you know, you're always going to get the same sort of angle. So here I am. I'm just moving further around. You can see I'm holding my file rather flat to the work. And that is going to give me a steep undercut on this cutting side here, and then remove everything that is not part of my cutting edge. So you can see here's my cutting edge, which we're going to call the land side after the drill. Actually, would you believe that's terminology that comes from ploughing a field. The land side or the land cut comes from a plough, just information. And then we've got this trailing edge. This trailing edge, we're going to come in here and we're going to remove this so it gets out of the way. And you can see I've just gone around this at my angle. You can see my thread is quite coarse, but that's going to do the job just fine. That's where I'm up to right now. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to get rid of this extra bit of material. And you can see how it's sort of flared. And this was the flare from the twisting action, just like the angle iron. It displaced those edges of the half round. And this is me now near completion. Okay, so that's what I want. This is my cutting edge. This edge is going to get in the way. That's back to the same slide. Sure, you've got that trailing edge out of the way. And here is my gimlet somewhat complete. You could case harden this if you wished. I haven't, and it does just fine. I don't expect these things to live forever. If I wanted one to live forever, I think I would just make it out of decent steel to start with. Now, there are other ways of connecting this to a handle. You can draw the end. I would still do the T handle that I did before. And if you want a wood handle, then cut the T off. The T really helps when you're making the twist. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a chore. So I've cut the T off if you want. And then I've just drawn a very lazy rectangular taper. Okay, and you can see that more in this photograph. That is a rectangular taper. So all I've done is flatten that on a couple of sides and then dress the width or the increase in width. And then I've just filed on a taper, a tenon. And then you notice I've got a washer here. Then you drill a hole in your piece of wood somewhere about the same size as your tenon there. Heat this up, push it through to, let's say, 7/8 of the way through. Pull it out, let the wood cool down, quench it in your slack tub, let this cool down, drive this through, and the wood should be soft enough. Slip the washer on and then head over the rivet, and that's going to give you an attachment to wood. And then enjoy. And it's really good for setting those staples. Victoria will cover the staples and their issues, I suppose. But that is the end of my little bit for the gimlet. So I'm going to stop out of this. I'm going to give this over to Victoria. Victoria, thank you.